She's holding my phone, screen facing up. She wants me to see that she's seen it. It's 10:30 p.m. on a Friday, and I'm standing in our bedroom doorway watching her read a text I sent to Jake 6 hours ago. The one where I said, "Man, she was so awkward at the dinner last night. Barely said anything to anyone. Just sat there on her phone half the time. I don't know, it's like she doesn't even try with my friends. Ex used to be good at this stuff, you know? Made an effort. Now I feel like I'm constantly making excuses for her." She looks up at me, doesn't say anything, just looks. And here's what's happening in my brain right now. I can win this. I have every logical argument lined up. She was quiet at dinner. She was on her phone. I wasn't lying. I was venting to my best friend. That's what guys do. She's overreacting. She invaded my privacy. I could deliver this defense like a closing argument and technically be right about every single point. And if I do that, I'm going to lose her. I know this because 3 years ago I tried to win an argument exactly like this one. Different girl, different issue, same fundamental mistake. I proved I was right, used logic, stayed calm while she got emotional, dismantled every point she made. Won the argument, lost the relationship. She moved out 8 weeks later. And standing here now, watching my girlfriend's hands shake slightly as she holds my phone, I'm thinking about something a mathematician named Anatole Rappaport figured out in the human conflict in the 1960s. Rappaport studied game theory, how people make strategic decisions when outcomes depend on what others do. He analyzed everything from nuclear deterrence to labor disputes to marriage arguments. And he discovered something that most people completely miss. The person who wins an argument usually loses what they actually care about. He called it Rappaport's rule, and it's the only thing standing between me and sleeping on the couch for the next month.
Rappaport's rule is simple. Before you can disagree with someone, you have to state their position so accurately that they say, "Yes, that's exactly what I think." Not what you think they think, what they actually think. It's in his book, Fights, Games, and Debates, this dense academic text from 1960 that somehow contains the blueprint for not destroying your relationship. The rule exists because of how our brains process conflict. When someone attacks you, or when you feel attacked, your amygdala lights up before your prefrontal cortex can even process what's happening. Daniel Goleman calls this amygdala hijack in emotional intelligence. Your amygdala is basically that paranoid security guard who thinks everyone's a threat. It evolved to keep you alive when threats were physical. Saber-toothed tiger jumps out, amygdala triggers fight or flight in 12 milliseconds, faster than thought. Problem is, it can't tell the difference between a tiger and your girlfriend holding your phone with evidence of your stupidity. So when she's standing there looking at that text, my amygdala is already screaming, "Defend yourself," before I even consciously register what's happening. And here's where most people, including past me, completely blow it. They skip straight to defense, to justification, to proving they're not wrong. That's your amygdala talking, not your brain. Rappaport figured out that if you go straight to defense, you're basically confirming to the other person that you don't understand or don't care about what's actually bothering them. So they dig in, get more emotional, escalate. And you respond by getting more logical, which makes them feel more dismissed, which makes you more frustrated, and 15 minutes later, you're having a completely different argument that neither of you even remember starting. 3 years ago, my ex said I made her feel unimportant, and I spent 20 minutes explaining why she was misinterpreting my behavior. Never once asked what made her feel that way. Never once showed her I understood her actual experience. I won every point, lost the relationship.
Not happening again. "Were you going to tell me?" she asks. Not, "Why did you say that?" Not, "Do you really think that?" Just, "Were you going to tell me you noticed I was struggling?" And right there, that question is the difference between what I think this argument is about and what it's actually about. I think it's about the text, about whether I was right to say she was awkward. She thinks it's about whether I'm on her team. This is what psychologist John Gottman calls bids for connection and his research on what makes relationships last. He studied thousands of couples and found that relationships survive or die based on how people respond to these bids. Your partner says something, makes a gesture, asks a question. that's a bid. You can turn toward it, engage, acknowledge, respond with interest, or you can turn away, ignore it, dismiss it, minimize it. Gottman found that couples who stay together turn toward bids 86% of the time. Couples who divorce, 33%. Were you going to tell me is a bid. She's asking, are you going to turn toward me or are you going to defend the fact that you turned away? 3 years ago, I would have heard that question as an attack. Would have said, tell you what, that you were quiet? You already know you were quiet. Completely missing the bid. Now I'm looking at her, really looking, and I'm seeing what I should have seen at dinner. Her hands are shaking, not from anger, from hurt. She's not wearing makeup, was already in bed, which means she's been sitting with this for hours, rereading it, wondering how many other times I've complained about her to Jake. Her eyes keep going back to the part where I mentioned my ex. That's the part that's killing her.
And I realize, if I defend what I said, if I explain why I said it, if I try to win this argument, I'm turning away from the bid. So I do something I didn't know how to do 3 years ago. I turn toward it. You're right, I say. I should have told you. Her expression shifts. She wasn't expecting that. I saw you were uncomfortable at dinner. I noticed you were on your phone. And instead of asking if you were okay, I just got frustrated and complained to Jake. I'm using something called the judo principle here. It's a concept from negotiation theory that Chris Voss talks about in Never Split the Difference. Voss was an FBI hostage negotiator. He'd get on the phone with someone holding people at gunpoint, and his job was to get everyone out alive. You don't do that by fighting every point the person makes. You do it by using their momentum, by agreeing with what's true and redirecting the energy. In actual judo, you don't resist force with force. You accept the direction of the attack and use it to throw your opponent off balance. In arguments, it means you don't fight the things that are true. I could say, but you were being awkward. That's force meeting force. That's both of us pushing against each other until someone gets tired or angry enough to end it. Instead, I'm acknowledging the part that's true. I should have checked on her, not complained about her. And here's what happens when you do this. When you genuinely concede what's actually true. The other person has nothing left to fight against. She's still holding the phone, but her posture has changed. She's not braced for combat anymore. I was sitting there watching you struggle, I say, and instead of helping you, I made it about me, about how your discomfort made me look. That's on me. This is the crucial part of the judo principle. You have to mean it. If you're just tactically agreeing to manipulate the conversation, people can smell it. It comes off as patronizing, strategic. But if you actually see where you are wrong, if you're genuinely acknowledging it, the entire emotional dynamic shifts.
Because she didn't come in here to be right. She came in here to feel heard. She sets the phone down on the dresser, crosses her arms. Why didn't you just ask me what was wrong? And here's where I could blow it, where I could start explaining that I didn't want to make a big deal out of it, that I figured she'd tell me if something was bothering her, that I was tired, all defensive, all protecting myself. There's something Ben Shapiro does in debates that most people miss. He's vicious at dismantling arguments, but he has this discipline. He doesn't defend points he doesn't need to defend. Someone attacks him on something peripheral to his main argument, he just lets it go, concedes it even, because defending everything makes you look weak, like you can't tell the difference between your strong points and your weak ones. In a relationship argument, that translates to, don't defend the indefensible. I don't have a good reason for not asking her what was wrong. There's no clever explanation that makes me look better. I didn't ask because I was being self-centered, so I don't try to explain it away. I don't have a good reason, I say. I should have. I just didn't. She's watching me carefully, trying to figure out if I'm being real or if this is some kind of technique. And honestly, I'm not sure either. Part of me is being strategic. I know that conceding fault disarms people. I know that refusing to defend yourself is rhetorically powerful. But part of me is also just tired. Tired of being the guy who needs to be right.
The guy who turns every disagreement into a debate he has to win. Because here's what I learned the hard way with my ex. Winning arguments in a relationship is a stupid game with a stupid prize. You win and your partner feels dismissed. You win and they stop bringing things up. You win and 6 months later they tell you it's over and you have no idea why because you thought everything was fine. She uncrosses her arms.
You compared me to her, she says quietly. To X. There it is. The thing that's actually destroying her. And I have this split-second decision tree in my head. I could minimize it, say I barely mentioned her, say it wasn't a real comparison. I could redirect, say that's not the point, or you're focusing on the wrong thing. I could counterattack, bring up something she did wrong, balance the scales. All of these are standard debate tactics. All of them would be disasters right now. There's a concept in psychology called active listening. Most people think it means nodding and saying, while someone talks, maybe paraphrasing what they said. That's not it. Real active listening, the kind therapist Carl Rogers wrote about in On Becoming a Person, means you're trying to understand not just what someone's saying, but what they're feeling underneath it. Rogers called it empathic understanding, and his research showed that people don't change their position because you logic them into it. They change because they feel understood first. When my ex told me I made her feel unimportant, she wasn't asking me to agree that she was unimportant. She was asking me to understand what that felt like for her. I spent the whole conversation trying to prove she shouldn't feel that way. Never once asked what it actually felt like to feel that way. Now my girlfriend is standing here saying, you compared me to her. And she's not asking me to defend it or explain it or minimize it. She's asking me to understand what it feels like to read your boyfriend saying his ex was better at something than you are. To see your name and her name in the same sentence with her coming out ahead. So instead of defending or explaining, I try something I didn't know how to do 3 years ago. I try to actually understand what she's feeling. And I realize it's not anger, it's fear. You're right, I say. I compared you. That was shitty. She's blinking fast. Try not to cry. I don't want you to be like her, I say. I'm not sitting here wishing you were more like her or acted like her or anything like that. Then why did you say it? And here's the moment, the question underneath the question. She's not asking me to defend what I said. She's asking me to explain what I was feeling that made me think it was okay to say it. Most people, when asked, why did you say that, immediately go into justification mode. Because it's true, or because I was frustrated, or because guys talk like that. But that's not what she's asking for. She's asking, what were you feeling that made you hurt me? There's a framework for this. Marshall Rosenberg developed it in the 1960s, called it nonviolent communication, wrote a whole book about it. The core idea, most conflict happens because people make observations sound like attacks. You were awkward is an attack. It's a judgment, a label. I felt embarrassed is an observation of your own internal state. Attacks trigger defensiveness. Observations create space for understanding. Rosenberg's formula is simple. When you did X, I felt Y because I needed Z. Not you made me feel. Not you always. Just this happened, I felt this, here's what I needed. It sounds like a small shift. It changes everything. I was embarrassed, I say. The words come out before I can stop them. Her face changes, not softer, just surprised. I was embarrassed that you were uncomfortable, I continue. And instead of helping you feel better, I made it about me, about how it reflected on me, about what my friends might think. I'm using the formula without meaning to. When you were quiet, X, I felt embarrassed, Y, because I needed Z. Wait, what did I need? I needed to look like I had my shit together, I say, realizing it as I say it. Like, I'm the guy with the cool girlfriend who fits in seamlessly with my friends. And when you didn't, I felt like I was failing at something. She's quiet for a long moment. You were embarrassed of me? She asks. And there's the trap. If I say yes, I confirm her worst fear. If I say no, I'm backtracking on what I just admitted. This is where most people panic and start over-explaining, words piling on words, trying to undo the damage, making it worse with every sentence. But there's something powerful about silence and conflict. There's actually research on this. A study from the University of Michigan found that pauses of 3 to 4 seconds in difficult conversations dramatically increase understanding and decrease escalation. Because silence does something most people don't expect. It gives both people's prefrontal cortex time to catch up with their amygdala. Remember that security guard? When you pause, you're basically telling him to stand down for a second. Let the rational part of your brain do some thinking. So I don't answer immediately. I just let the question sit there. And in that silence, I'm figuring out what's actually true. Was I embarrassed of her? Or was I embarrassed that I didn't help her feel comfortable? That I invited her to meet my friends and then just abandoned her to fend for herself? I was embarrassed of how I handled it, I say finally. Not of you, of me. She's still looking at me, trying to figure out if that's true. Your friends are loud. They all talk over each other. I couldn't get a word in. Every time I tried to say something, someone interrupted me or changed the subject. And there it is. The thing I completely missed because I was too busy being frustrated with her. Chose venting to Jake over talking to her. Chose being right over being kind. We stand there for a moment, neither of us saying anything. She's not holding the phone anymore. This isn't about the text now. It's about what the text revealed. I don't know how to be around your friends, she says quietly. They're all so comfortable with each other. I'm just not. And instead of saying, they're not that bad, or you just need to relax, or any of the dismissive things I'd normally say, I just nod. Because she's right. They are comfortable. They've known each other since college. They have rhythms and inside jokes and a conversational flow that doesn't have space for someone new unless someone intentionally makes space. And I didn't make space. Next time will be different, I say. I'll make sure you're not on your own. Will there be a next time? She asks. And I can hear the real question. Are we okay? Here's what I learned from losing someone 3 years ago. You don't fix things by winning the argument about who was right. You fix things by showing you understand what hurt them, by proving through action, not words, that you're going to do something different next time. Rappaport's rule, the judo principle, active listening, nonviolent communication, strategic pauses. All of these are just different ways of saying the same thing. Stop trying to win and start trying to understand. Because here's the truth. I was right that she was quiet at dinner, but being right didn't matter. What mattered was that she felt shut out and alone and then judged for feeling that way. What mattered was that I prioritized venting to my friend over checking in with her. If I'd spent this conversation proving I was justified, I'd have won every logical point and destroyed her trust in the process. That's the thing about winning arguments when you're wrong. You absolutely can do it. You can logic your way into making someone feel like they're overreacting. You can use these techniques to control the conversation and come out looking right. But you'll be right and alone. And that's not winning. That's just losing slower.